Good afternoon. My name is Ces Butner, and I have the honor to serve as this year's president of the Rotary Club of Oakland. Founded in 1908, the Rotary Club of Oakland is the third oldest Rotary Club of some 35,000 Rotary clubs throughout the world. We are a community of 300 men and women from all walks of Oakland civic and commercial and community life, committed to the Rotary motto of service above self. I'd like to welcome you to our 5,338th club meeting. For over 111 years, we have welcomed Rotarians and guests from around the world to our club meetings. We continue to do so virtually, and soon right here from the California Ballroom. That's right, today, after a year, or to be more exact, 60 weeks of being away from our home, we are coming to you live from the California Ballroom. Many thanks to our AV team co-chairs, Jack Iles and Sandeepa Nayak, who have worked tirelessly this year to help us maintain some continuity in our meeting format. We're today testing, as you could tell by the way we got started, the how to integrate the ballroom experience with our virtual environment. So bear with us as we get ready for in-person meetings in June. In June, we'll have in-person meetings and we'll do it in a hybrid format. So if you're a visiting Rotarian or if you're a guest of Rotarian, please type in your name of the name of your club into the chat box located at the center bottom of your screen. By doing so, we'll be able to recognize you later. And also, if you recommend that you participants view this Zoom meeting by clicking the speaker view button located on the right-hand corner of your screen. And if you have questions or comments for the speaker, you can use that button as well. And now for our thought for the day, Rotarian Scott Bowhay.
Thank you, Ces, and welcome everybody. Remember me? I remember many of you. And yesterday I got the call asking if I would give the thought for the day, and of course I panicked. You know, I wondered what could I say to this group that would be worthwhile to this wonderful, accomplished, hardworking, conscientious, generous, intelligent, and mostly good-looking, though somewhat tattered, group of Rotarians. What could I say that they could take to heart? Why do we get together every week, even though it's only by Zoom and now soon to be live? And all I could come up with this, and I hope you find it both reassuring and alarming. We Rotarians have never been more needed. There are people here in Oakland and around the world who need our help. So that's my thought. That's it. I hope that was enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, for setting the tone for our first practice meeting with that inspiring note. Because we want to remain grounded and focused, we begin our meetings by jointly reciting our vision, which is, together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe and in our communities and in ourselves. Hope you enjoyed last week's meeting where we had our newly appointed Oakland Police Chief, LaRon Armstrong, introduce himself and explain the strategy for policing here in Oakland. We couldn't get to all the questions, but he has graciously agreed to come back to us again and spend more time with our questions. This week, we'll have an opportunity to test our upcoming hybrid meetings, anticipating in-person meetings in June. So step back, enjoy another in our Civic Thursday meetings where you can catch a great speaker and get involved with Rotary where service above self exists. Past District Governor Ed Jellen, do we have any visiting Rotarians or guests?
Indeed we do, President Ces. First, excuse me, we have a visiting Rotarian from the Rotary Club of San Leandro, a past president. Welcome to Diane Dorn. Diane, always nice to have you with us, especially at our first hybrid meeting of the Rotary Club of Oakland. And let's see, who else can I see out there? CJ Hirschfield brought a guest with her, Deborah Boyer.
There's
So
a problem.
we
I can't
welcome
hear.
Deborah to our hybrid meeting. Very nice to have you. And let's see, finally, Jackie Forrester brought a guest, Clifton Barnes, who's with CA&C Video Production. So Clifton, great to have you here with us. Hope you enjoy the meeting. And that's my list, President Ces.
Okay, thank you, Ed, and welcome to all the guests. Now to remind us of the culmination of our ORE fundraising activity.
Oh, we have one more, Seth. Sorry
The
to
gala
interrupt.
event.
We have Carol King is
Rotarian.
another guest with CJ's guest. Thank you.
All right. Now, to remind us of the culmination of our ORA fundraising campaign this year and the gala event, Rotarian Kathleen Sims.
Thank you, Seth. Hello, Rotarians. Let's talk casino night. Hopefully you've received some of our emails reminding you about the casino night and an invitation. But what's the perfect pairing for a fun night of casino games, entertainment, and giving? You guessed it, delicious cocktails. That would be my favorite. On May 22nd, we'll have Oakland-based chef Nigel Jones of Kingston 11 Cuisine in our mixology room, demonstrating how to shake up and stir two of his signature cocktails. Let's see. I don't know if the pictures are matching, but so we wanted to remind you that you can join the fun and register today. We're open. Bidding is open. Registration is open. The tickets are $100, and with that, you get 25 chips. Or our high rollers, the ticket is $150 with 75 chips. If you have any questions, you can give me a call. I'll put my number in the chat. We have one more slide for you, Sandeepa. The raffle.
Tell me when.
So we're having a raffle. We're having, let's see, the wine cellar raffle. There it is. The wine cellar raffle at the gala. So what we're raffling is 25 bottles of wine, which are donated by the board and the trustees. So it's really going to be great wine. The winner last year won on only 2 tickets, and we're only advertising this at the meetings. So you're not going to have a lot of competition or other people bidding on this. So it's really fun. There are 3 ways to purchase tickets in this virtual world. Before, we used to sell them at the meetings, but you can type in chat the number of tickets you want. You can email Jesse or you can call Jesse, and I can put all that information in there. And then he will send you an invoice for the raffle tickets. So start now, and we look forward to hearing from you. Do you have any questions? Does anybody want any other information about the gala and the casino night? We're good. Everybody knows? Okay, perfect. Thank you, Ces. Ces?
If you haven't contributed yet, you
Yes.
should make sure you do and get your ticket for the gala before it gets over with.
The raffle
We
tickets.
have, yes, Kathleen.
So if I didn't mention it, the raffle tickets are $50. That's it.
Back to me now. Sooner or later, we'll get this figured out. It's going to be a little bit of a while before we get all the technical situations done. Let me say that this is a test, really a test of our resiliency as a club. We have to come back from this as best we can. We spent my whole year here as president being virtual in nature. And I know we want to get back and touch everyone and see everybody and fist bump at least, or elbow bump, to say hello to everybody and to get back to what we really mean as an organization, which is service above self. We haven't been able to do very many service programs this year, but we're going to work on that for what we're coming up as we come out of this pandemic. This is COVID-19 has certainly thrown us a curveball for this year, but we'll get through this. And what I want you to think about as we go into breakout rooms, when we normally have our fellowship and focus, everybody gets a chance to chat with everybody at the table. And I want to imagine that we have all these tables filled in this room right now, and that we can send everybody back to the way it used to be, when you sat at your table and had fellowship before we had our speaker home. So Sandeepa, if you can send us to the breakout rooms and have everybody have a little fellowship before we go to the breakout rooms. You got it, Sandeepa? Okay. Yeah. Let's go to the breakout rooms. 8 minutes.
We are back.
We're back. It's tough. Now, do we have CJ? I think you're the one that's going to introduce our speaker for the day. Do us the honor of introducing this week's Civic Thursday speaker, please. Rotarian CJ Hirschfield.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you, President Ces, and welcome everybody. Well, what can you really say about Academy Awards program whose high point was Glenn Close proving she knows how to dance to "Da Butt"? 2021's Oscar show saw a 51% drop from the 18.69 million who watched last year. But 2021 was also Oscar's most diverse year, with new diversity and inclusion standards in the process of being established. Our speaker has lived and breathed cinema since he was 12 and projected a film inside his family's barn with the audience in the hayloft. He went on to co-found the landmark National Art House Theater chain, which helped launch the careers of dozens of filmmakers. And he was also co-director of the renowned Telluride Film Festival for 8 years. Gary founded the online magazine eatdrinkfilms.com in 2014, and he continues to consult with film festivals, independent filmmakers, and art cinemas. 2 years ago, he was inducted into SF Film's local Hall of Fame. It's really a pleasure to welcome back the film expert who was inspired to a lifetime of motion pictures after seeing Lady and the Tramp, Gary Meyer.
Hi, thank you very much. Glad to be back. It's always fun. A little more odd to not be looking at an audience that's live in front of me. Your president must be kind of thinking, oh, where's the feedback? Nobody laughed at my jokes. I was asked to talk about the Oscars and about the future of moviegoing. So a bunch of stuff I'd like to say, but I also would urge you to put your ideas and your thoughts into the chat. As you probably know, you can save the whole chat at the end of the session so that you can go back and look at comments and links. I'll put some links and suggestions in there as well. But let's get to the Oscars. I thought that I think there should be a celebration of going to the movies. That's what it's always been all of these years. And especially this year, knowing that we've been unable to go to the theaters and they're starting to open up again. I had high hopes for this year's Oscar celebration because Steven Soderbergh is a great filmmaker and he put together a terrific team. And I'm sad to say that they failed me. There was no host. I don't know what people feel about that. They've experimented with having no hosts, having multiple hosts. There was a time when Bob Hope and Johnny Carson and Billy Crystal were regularly a part of it. And so we got to know them. They were almost part of the family. So there's no monologue. There was no real sense of humor this year. Now, we got to see the movies the same way that most voters have been seeing them for years at home on our TV. That's sort of one of the weird things is that these people who are actors, cinematographers, sound people, whatever it is, and most of the films that they vote on from watching a screener that's sent to them. I think we even have a couple of members here that do that. They are members of the Directors Guild or the Academy, and they get to see all their movies at home. Do they go to theaters to see any of them? I don't know. But that's the way those films were intended to be seen, on the big screen. Now, movies are a visual entertainment, right? But they forgot that in this year's Academy Award. Sid Ganis, who is a board member of the Academy and used to be president of the Academy, is a friend. And when it looked like the Oscars were not going to be the traditional format, many months ago, I suggested to him that it would be really terrific if they could get a lot of famous people to talk about their first movie-going experience, their favorite movie-going experience. He passed it on, whether they decided to do it because of my suggestion or they already had it in their mind, it doesn't make any difference. But then they only did it with a handful of people. And as those people told about this great experience they had, wouldn't it have been nice to have had a clip from the film they were talking about? But no, instead we had them just a talking head on the screen. The most boring thing it could possibly be. And it was a challenging year for a lot of the nominations because they were all just seen at home by everybody. And it was overwhelming. And what are they? Are they made for Netflix or Amazon, or are they made for theatrical? And this is the only way we're being able to see them because of the times. One of my favorite films actually is a series of 5 films called Small Acts that was on Amazon, made for BBC. And they chose, the producers chose to have it be a TV series as opposed to films, but they each were 5 full-length movies that I highly recommend people go see or watch on. It's on Amazon. But back to this whole thing about visuals, visual special effects. We'd like to see them. In fact, 3 of those movies are movies I've never even heard of before, so I have no idea what those effects look like. But to demonstrate what sound and art direction and costumes and these various aspects are, those clips really are important to do that. Now, as a result of what we had this year, more small films were nominated than ever. The Academy likes to have a balance of small, really challenging films, but also some big blockbuster kinds of movies, but they weren't seen in theaters, so they weren't nominated. I think the closest thing to a big studio movie that was nominated would be News of the World, terrific Tom Hanks movie, but it only was nominated in technical categories and Best Song. If that film had had a proper theatrical release, I think it would have gotten a much higher number of nominations because it really shows off what it's like. It's beautiful to watch. It's great on the big screen, involving. It was interesting. We had no orchestra. We had Questlove doing a good job as a DJ and had been told, I guess, to not have, not to play out people. You know how the orchestra usually will interrupt if they're going too long in their acceptance speech. So they let them go complete with their acceptance speech. And people in the industry evidently liked it very much because they all got thanked. If I was producing this show, I would have all the nominees send in a list of everybody they want to thank, and it would run on the screen below them while they were telling us the really good things that maybe we didn't have the patience to sit through their whole list of thank yous to get to that really juicy story they had to tell or the emotional thing that they wanted to tell us about. And if you stuck through it, you heard some really great ones the other night. The In Memoriam is always a highlight. We're interested in it. There's a guy named Chuck Workman who used to edit those, and they were beautiful. And he doesn't do them anymore. This year they cut it to the beat of a song. So it speeded up, and pretty soon it was going so fast that you couldn't even register who some of the people were. It was like being Lucille Ball in a chocolate factory trying to keep up with the chocolates. It was very frustrating. Luckily, you can watch it on TV. And it's interesting, this is a very serious moment in the Oscars, and it was preceded by Glenn Close doing her tweaking, which I have to believe was scripted, a thing that was planned. And why didn't they do that with her before she lost her 8th nomination? Because it must have been difficult for her to get into that kind of a mood. A lot of diversity in this year's Academy Award nominations. 3 women for Best Director, first time that's ever been the case. A lot of people of color, films with people with disabilities. But interestingly, in the Best Picture category, only Judas and the Black Messiah was a film with a Black theme. Where Were Ma Rainey's Black Bottom and One Night in Miami in that category? There's room for 10 nominations. They didn't fill them all up. And then they ended it kind of strangely because presumably they thought that Chadwick Boseman, the late Chadwick Boseman, would win the Academy Award for Best Actor. And so they rearranged things and put the Best Picture third to last, and then Best Actress, and then Best Actor. And then Chadwick didn't win. And so suddenly the show was over. This emotional speech that they assumed his widow would be giving wasn't there. So sometimes you just leave some things the way they should be. There are a lot of films that were snubbed. I'm not going to go over a long list. I had wrote it up here, and I will put it into the chat, but films that I really liked that were not nominated at all or barely nominated. And I will put in a list of films that I liked a lot. There are a couple that you've never heard of, probably, like Pinocchio, an Italian version of Pinocchio. It's really worth seeing. Watch it in the Italian version with subtitles, not the dub version. The White Tiger is also a film that got 1 nomination, and it's just terrific, but there's some other ones as well. I will also put into the chat the reviews of all the short films Our own J Hirshfield reviewed the documentary short films, and you can read the reviews and it'll tell you where you can actually see the short films, which is always a great experience. So 3 packages. I do want to talk about, there's a lot of films that I really liked. There are a couple of films that I liked with mixed emotions. The Trial of Chicago 7, there was a lot of fiction in there. It was very entertaining. I'm glad that we had Judas and the Black Messiah to have a balance with the story of Fred Hampton. And Promising Young Woman, which starts out as quite entertaining and intriguing, and then gets to have the darkest, most disturbing ending that is very hard to watch. So it's one of those things where you're mixed. And the films that I really disliked that got lots of nominations were Mank and United States versus Billie Holiday. 2 subject matters that fascinate me. And I'm a big fan of Billie Holiday. But these are 2 films that were mostly fiction and lots of gimmickry. I do think that there were some terrific performances. Andra Day was great as Billie Holiday, and her impersonation of the singing was terrific. But the film has so much misinformation in it that it's really a shame. So put your thoughts in there about the Oscars and what you would like to see an Oscar show look like in the future. I agree. First Cow, terrific. I love that. It's part of my list. But let's talk a little bit about the future of moviegoing. I believe that people want to go out to the movies, and it's a big night out. I personally am probably not going to go until the fall or later because I want to feel absolutely comfortable. So far, theaters in various parts of the country and the world that have opened have not had any cases of COVID traced to them, which is great. The theaters have taken a tremendous amount of precautions to create safety, both in terms of spacing and reserved seats and making sure people wear masks, except I guess when you're eating popcorn. And they put in new air circulation systems. It has been a major, major activity that the National Association of Theater Owners has taken on. They made it possible for any movie theater in America to become a member for free, so they could participate and take advantage of the seminars they have every week and the guidelines that they provide because they want the theaters to reopen, but they want them to reopen in a safe way. They don't want them to suddenly have to close down because it didn't work out well. So why do we like to go to the movies? Well, I like to escape from the day's happenings. Whatever happened out there in the real world, I want to get away from it. I want to be immersed in other worlds and other stories, whether it's a blockbuster or an intimate tale. It's a special night out. I like the big screen that surrounds me and the great sound. I like being part of an audience, responding with laughter and thrills, tears, excitement, whatever emotions the film, if it's a good one, brings for us. Now, what are the things you like about watching it at home? Well, you can stop and start to answer the phone and go to the bathroom and check out the refrigerator for snacks, let the dog out, or stop the kids from fighting. I mean, isn't that great to be able to do that in the middle of the movie? And you get to have the internet that freezes up and causes the film to buffer, and you don't know when it's going to come back on again. And you can check your tweets and respond to things, but then you have the ability to rewind what you missed because you were busy tweeting. That's really great, isn't it? And you get other people in the room, they talk a lot, and so that gives people sort of the okay to go to the movie theaters and talk during the movies. No, I guess I'm sort of kidding. Of course, there are a lot of good things. I got to see virtually every Academy Award nominated film because it was more convenient to do it at home. But it was just not the same experience. I'm biased. My whole career has been in the movies, about going to the movies, and I want that to continue to be. Movies have survived radio and television and pay TV and cable and video cassettes and DVD and video on demand, which we call VOD, and streaming services. We will continue to survive, but it will change. I think that a lot of theaters will not reopen, both big circuit theaters and independent theaters. It's really important to support all of them, but particularly the independent theaters need your support. They have done some interesting things during the pandemic. The distributors of the small films and those independent theaters partnered to present virtual cinema, where movies that would have been opening in theaters were opening at home. You paid a modest admission price And the theaters and the filmmakers and the distributors were sharing in the revenues. And it was a way for those theaters to stay in contact with their loyal audiences through their emails and their websites and various social media to say, we're here and we're still curating films for you. That's going on, and that will continue to go on. I believe that streaming and theatrical will be what they call day and date in a lot of cases. Day and date is both in theaters and online. As things kind of relax, I think that we will see windows reopen, so to speak, where most films will open to theaters, and then somewhere 3 to 6 weeks later, they will become available video on demand in your home, somewhere between $20 and $30. And then maybe 2 months later, 3 months later, they'll become available for $5. And at some point down the future, they'll be available for free. Theaters have some interesting ways of working with this, especially in independents, because let's say a movie is playing in a theater, and after several weeks, it has kind of run out of steam to be able to justify the cost of showing it in that theater, but there's still an audience that's interested, and they can then refer their audiences to see, well, it's now going to be available through us. You can rent it for a modest amount, and we will be beneficiaries as well on that. So I think it's an interesting thing that we will see. I think that there's been a lot of discussion about flexible pricing in the theaters. Should a blockbuster be charging a higher admission than a smaller film? And will you go see a smaller or lesser known film if the price is lower? Or is it too much to go out to too much work and you're only going to do it for special events? We don't know that yet. King Kong versus Godzilla opened a few weeks ago, and it opened to $50 million. In the past worlds, that was not very good, but in today's world, it was extremely good. So much bigger than anything that has opened theatrically in the past months, that it's a good thing and a bad thing. It shows that people want to go out to the movies, for sure, when they're ready to do so. But a lot of the studios looked at that and said, if it could do that much business when there's still a large percentage of theaters closed and people are afraid to go, our movie, our blockbuster, we're going to wait until people are really going back to the theaters. So we're pushing it back until the fall or the winter or next year. And that's been happening with a lot of movies. What does that cause? That there are not many movies in the theaters. Theaters need movies to operate. So they're showing old movies and stretching things out. So this summer, even though there are a number of blockbusters that are being released, is it going to be enough to keep people interested in wanting to go on a regular basis, and more importantly, to pay the theaters, to pay for all those employees who are going to be hopefully coming back to work? Let's see, I have some notes here. Netflix has disdain for theaters, even though they've recently bought a theater in New York and a theater in Los Angeles to basically have qualifying runs of their movies. They don't want you to go to movie theaters. They want you to see the films on their platform, pay their monthly fee and do that. Warner Brothers made a commitment for their entire theatrical release of 2021 to go in theaters and on HBO Max at the same time. They said, it's just for this year. That's just for this year. Well, why didn't they do that for 6 months and see how things were going? And I saw the other day that they've said, this is the way it's going to be forever. Disney's been experimenting. Some films going straight to Disney Plus, some going both in theaters and on Disney Plus, but you pay $30. And they are the behemoth that every theater wants to be in good stead with Disney, because they have Star Wars and Marvel and Pixar and any other number of really big blockbuster movies that are going to generate revenue in the theaters. But there's a problem, because Disney, knowing that, is demanding outrageously high rental terms, percentage of the box office. That's causing some theaters to say, well, I can't make go of it with that. So it's a problem. Drive-ins had a revival during this time, but I went to several drive-in shows at the Mill Valley Film Festival, San Francisco Film Festival, and one event that was at a real traditional drive-in as opposed to the others being pop-ups. And, it's a nostalgia thing for me. We went to the movies, not so much to see the movies probably when we were teenagers, And there's a lot of things wrong with going to see a movie in a drive-in as far as I'm concerned, but it's a way of getting out. Some of our local theaters are getting ready to open. The Grand Lake Theater is ready to open in late May, as you can see from the sign there. There you go. Sorry, I figure out how to do that better. Alan Michon has put the entire theater on solar. The roof sign, the animated roof sign, is being repaired and we'll have 3,000 new LED lights on that roof to illuminate sometime, hopefully this summer. They're doing all kinds of interior upgrades and restorations. The new parkway will be opening a little bit later, probably at the end of the summer, but they're doing a lot of upgrades there. And this food box program that they've been doing, where you can order a week's worth of food out of their kitchen, has kept their employees working and provided a good deal on good food, and they will possibly continue that once they open. I don't know what's going on with the Piedmont Theater. Landmark has opened the Shattuck and the Embarcadero, but have not announced any of the other theaters. I think they're focusing on just one theater in each region. The manager of the Piedmont, Peter Tumo, who is the guy who introduces films and gives away prizes, was in a horrible car accident. He is recovering, and we are hoping that he's going to be able to come back. And I think the Jack London Square theaters will be opening soon, and an AMC Emery Bay is open. So that's enough of me jabbering on. I think it's time to hear some questions from you. And I'll put some things in the chat for you to save if you want. Oh, and one of the things I'm putting in the chat is John Fithian, who's the president of the National Association of Theater Owners, did an extremely good conversation about the future of moviegoing. And it's on YouTube, and I'll put that link in there as well for you.
Okay, I think we're going to have questions. And Suzie, do we have any questions in the chat for
We do,
our speaker?
President Ces, thank you. So the first question comes from David Stein. His question is, I loved One Night in Miami. What did you think of it? Were you surprised that it wasn't nominated for Best Picture?
It was one of my favorite films of the year, and I was very disappointed that it was not nominated for Best Picture. I've had some people say, well, it's a stage play, as Ma Rainey's was a stage play. But I thought that it was a stage play that respected the fact that it had once been a play, and at the same time really made it an involving movie. Yes, we spent most of the time in that motel room, but those performances and what they were saying were fascinating. It was a speculation about what would have happened on the night that Muhammad Ali, or Cassius Clay at the time, won that match unexpectedly. And you have Sam Cooke and Malcolm X, and I can't remember who else the fourth one was. Anyway, you have these four guys in the room that are there to talk about the future. And it's really the night that presumably got Cassius Clay to make the decision about his political involvement and changing his name to Muhammad Ali. So I love the film.
Okay, another question from David Stein. Is there any change in how the theaters are charged for the showings?
Any change in what?
How the theaters are charged for the showings?
During the pandemic, when films were on a streaming service, they have been generally paying a lower film rental than they would otherwise, except for Disney.
Oh, David Stein said Jim Brown was the fourth guy. Okay, and there is one more
Oh,
question.
Jim Brown, right, thank you.
Yeah, there's one more question. It is from Allison Bliss. Isn't a film that supposedly tells the full truth the domain of a documentary, where a feature needs to have some dramatic license to hold entertainment audience attention? I personally loved US versus Billie Holiday. Think it educated many people about Ho and Teleco, albeit over dramatized. Isn't that worthy in your opinion?
The problem was that it was very misleading. She had no affair or relationship with that FBI agent. It didn't, for me, I wanted to know more about the creative process of how Billie Holiday did what she did. That movie is based on one chapter in a nonfiction book about addiction. And most of what's in that chapter has been refuted by people who knew her were a part of her life who have done research. Kim Nally, who's a local wonderful jazz singer, getting her doctorate at Berkeley, and that's part of what she's writing about. And so she's researched it greatly, and she was very offended by the film. So, I mean, I'm not gonna say you shouldn't watch it, and because the performances are quite wonderful, if it leads you to listen to more Billie Holiday, that's great. There was a documentary earlier in the year about Billie Holiday that was good, but not great, but it was good. It was worth seeing. And actually, we have on Eat Drink Films, my website, we have some reviews of the film, and also I did a gallery of every video that I could find of Billie Holiday performing. But I'll post that too if you're interested in watching her in her performances.
Great, thank you. And we have one last question from Anna Marie. If you could choose 3 or 4 older movies to be released to help people go back to the theaters, what would you pick?
Wow. I'm curious, is it movies that I just happen to love that I think are great movie going experiences, or ones that would have to convince you to do that?
Let's see if she adds a comment. She says the ones you love.
Well, my list changes a lot, but I would say that there are 2 movies about moviegoing that I really do love. One is Buster Keaton's Sherlock Jr. Buster Keaton is a projectionist in a movie theater. The girl he loves is the daughter of the manager of the theater, who does not want his daughter to have anything to do with him. He falls asleep in the projection booth, wakes up out of the dream, and clearly it's a dream, but he wakes up and you see his body lift out of his own body, looks through the porthole at the screen, and he sees this young woman that he's in love with in the movie being chased by a villain. Buster Keaton runs down into the theater, jumps onto the stage and into the movie, and becomes a part of the adventure of the film. And the beauty of it is that he so understood about storytelling and about editing that he might go to sit on a bench, and there's a cut in the film to a scene that doesn't have a bench anymore, but he just seamlessly continues to fall onto the ground. It's only 45 minutes. It's wonderful. Sullivan's Travels, directed by Preston Sturgis, written and directed by Preston Sturgis, who is a great writer of screwball comedies. And this is a film with Joel McCrea as a director and writer of great screwball comedies, whose contract is being renegotiated with the studio, and he demands that he get to make a serious movie. And they agree to let him do it. And he says, I'm going to go out on the road like a hobo and find out what it's like for the homeless people in the world. And I'm not gonna tell you any more, except that it is funny and moving. And there is a moment in that film that will tell you everything about why you want to be going to the movies in a theater. And I'm thinking of, I love Close Encounters of the Third Kind. There's something about wonder and magic in that film, and possibilities. So that's a starter.
Okay, great, thank you.
Have any more questions, Susie? We've got time for a couple more questions.
Yeah, we've got a question from Greg Knight. He said, do you think award show viewership is declining because there are too many long commercial sets and the award recipients all give basically the same thank you speech, thanking Mother, God, and manager?
Well, I did say earlier that I thought that nobody should be thanking anybody on the screen. It should all be on a strip that goes across the bottom of the screen, and then get to the important stuff. Commercials, they have a contract with ABC. ABC needs to sell commercials. They sold out, but the ratings on the Oscars and on every other award show continue to go down every year. We resolve that by watching the Oscars starting about an hour and a half later. We'll have dinner or whatever and go for a walk and come back and watch it and speed through the commercials. So the show is much shorter that way. They don't like that. The network doesn't like that because we're not seeing those advertisements, but you have the right to do that. What you have to be careful about is if you speed through those long thank you lists, you might miss a really good end of the speech. they did something interesting this year where usually they say that you're not supposed to, the studios are not supposed to advertise during the Oscars, but they let them introduce 3 films. So we had Lin-Manuel Miranda introducing The Heights, Questlove introducing Summer of Soul, and I think Spielberg introduced West Side Story, or somebody else did. And that was a way to talk about movies that are coming out in theaters exclusively, except it turns out In the Heights is going to be on HBO Max and theaters. So that was an interesting kind of a variation on what could work with it in terms of a commercial that we're interested in. I'd love to see part of the Oscars be basically promotions for all kinds of upcoming movies, because that's what we're there for, is the movies.
One more, if you have it, Susie.
Yeah, Sam Miller is asking, what did you think of Ma Rainey?
I liked it with some mixed feelings. It's interesting because it's also a stage play, but somehow I didn't get as involved as I wanted to. I thought the performances were great. The music was terrific. I learned a lot from the subject matter. And my wife tells me I need to go back and watch it again because I must have missed something. I don't follow tweets, but I think the dog wanted to go out several times.
Thank you, Gary, for being our speaker for today.
I'm gonna put this Billie Holiday thing in here too.
Let's see where we get some noise going on in here. This year, our club is making the homeless crisis in Oakland a priority. To that end, and as our gift to you for being our speaker for the day, in your honor, we're making a donation to support our unhoused residents in Oakland. Additionally, we would like to give you our Centennial Book, which documents 100 years of service and friendship in the third oldest club in the Rotary world. Again, thank you, Gary, for being our speaker for today.
Thank you, it was my pleasure.
Rotarian, Elaine Virgil, will you tell us about the speaker for our next Civic Thursday meeting?
Absolutely, President Ces. You may have heard about our next speaker through her international best-selling book, Brave, Not Perfect, or her influential TED Talk, Teach Girls Bravery, Not Perfection, which has more than 5 million views globally, or the organization she founded, Girls Who Code, which has helped to close the gender gap in the tech sector. But next week, just days after we have celebrated mothers, Reshma Sajani will be with us to talk about her new initiative, the Marshall Plan for Moms. Did you know that the greatest threat to achieving women's equality today is the crisis impacting working moms? Since the pandemic began, 2.3 million women have been pushed out of the workforce, either because of our childcare crisis or because their jobs disappeared entirely. In less than a year, we've lost 30 years of progress on women's workforce participation. Now, these statistics are staggering, but they don't even begin to give voice to the reality that so many moms are facing, working around the clock as primary caregivers, managing virtual education, and simply put, functioning as America's social safety net. So the crisis requires a bold, comprehensive plan, and the Marshall Plan for Moms is the national movement to center women in our economic recovery and value women's labor by advocating for public and private sector policies that support all moms. The movement is gaining momentum, the support of business leaders, activists, celebrities across the gender spectrum. You may have seen the full-page ads in the New York Times and the Washington Post. The Marshall Plans for Moms has been introduced in both the House and the Senate. So log in next week to hear Reshma Sajani discuss this unprecedented crisis impacting working moms and her plan to address it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, do we have any? I will know where Jesse is. I don't know whether to look here in the audience or look on the list. Jesse, do we have any bell ringers for today?
Yes, Jesse asked me to let you know that we have one bell ring from David Kirsten for Nancy Williams, publisher of Money Pages.
Great, great. We always take any of those bell rings anytime we do have them. One, that's a great article, as in case anybody hasn't seen it. I think David put it in the chat as well. You can look up that magazine, Money Magazine. It's got a great article about Rotary and service above self. Thank you, Scott, for the thought for the day. Thank you, Kathleen, for the gala announcement. And thank you, CJ, for introducing such an amazing speaker. Jesse, so I'd like to end this meeting, as we always do, despite the fact that we had a few glitches, we still got through it for our first time in coming back to you live from the California Ballroom. And hopefully in June, we'll be meeting here, actually in-person meeting, and we can work out some of these details of the cross hybrid mode where I can bring in the virtual audience and have a live audience at the same time. So I'd like to end this meeting as we always do, and that's the way it went at the 5,338th club meeting on May the 6th, 2021 at Oakland Rotary number 3, the third oldest Rotary club in the world. Everyone remember, Rotary opens opportunities for service above self. And for now, this meeting of the Rotary Club of Oakland is adjourned. It was a test. It was a test. We tried to make it. Hopefully it didn't come off too bad. We got to get a focus lined up in there.